Welcome to Caddyshack to Corner Office. I'm your host, Kai Sato. On the show, we recognize the most accomplished people who once caddied and grow the game by assisting people following their path. Today, I'm lucky to be joined by my good buddy, Josh Isner. Josh, thanks for taking some time.
Good to see you, Kai. Thanks a lot. Excited that you finally got down far enough on the list of people you wanted to interview that I was eligible here. So must be a slow month for you, but I appreciate it.
Well, in fact, quite the opposite is true. I didn't know that you had looped. And when you and I were playing in a golf tournament together this month, in fact, I think we'd finally built enough trust and you shared something that was with me. And immediately that catapults somebody like Josh Isner to the top of the list. So I do really appreciate it. Before we dive in, would you mind just giving the listeners a little background on you, what you do now, what constitutes your corner office as the president of Axon?
Sure. So I've been at a company called Axon for 16 years. Came straight out of college. 2 weeks after I graduated, I drove across the country from Boston to Arizona to start working. Back then, our company was named TASER. It was named after our only product, which, as you can guess, was the TASER gun that the police use. Since then, we've made some large investments into video, into SaaS software, virtual reality, AI, a lot of different products now. And I'd characterize us now as kind of, the tech company that serves public safety. We make all the cool next generation products that the police use. Our mission is to protect life. We're trying to make sure police officers and civilians get home safely every day. And we've had a lot of success doing that. Our TASER device have saved over 200,000 lives in the field where a person could have otherwise been shot and killed, justifiably according to the law, and instead the officer used less lethal force. And then same with the body cams. That's been probably the biggest part of our business over the last 10 years. But showing what happens in policing day to day, emphasizing mutual accountability and transparency. I think it's one of the few things these days that everybody can agree on that more transparency into public safety is a good thing, and I think we're building a lot of trust and having some really good outcomes as a result.
It's an amazing story and it's an incredible company, especially as a Arizona kid born and bred. It's one of the true success stories that we have in the state, but also in the country. So it's very, very cool to learn a little bit about you guys. And we're going to ask a lot more questions about your role there, what you've done, leadership, because I think it always dovetails back to some of these earlier days. But if you wouldn't mind, where'd you first caddy and how old were you when you got going?
Yeah. New Seabury Country Club in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Had to have been 13 or 14 years old. And I always wanted to caddy, but our club didn't have caddies as I was growing up. But then they built a new course, or I should say they renovated the course there for a summer, and they couldn't take carts on the course that summer, and so they started a caddy program there, and it was a very, very cool thing to be a part of, and spent the summer doing that, and worked the driving range and other kind of similar jobs over that time as well, and being a big golfer myself, nothing better than being out on the golf course instead of going to summer camp or doing some restaurant job or whatever it was inside. So that's how I spent the summers.
How did you even get the idea? You said you were about 13 years old, wanted to be a caddy. Had you seen them? Did you talk to people who had done it? Like, how did the idea even come about?
Yeah, so I was aware they had a lot of caddy programs in different courses around the area, in Massachusetts. And I just thought it would always be, more fun. Like I played golf a lot, so walking with a golf bag on my shoulder wasn't that foreign to me. And so the idea I could be out there, and especially with folks that maybe weren't as adept with golf, helping them out a little bit, building some relationships, making sure that I was learning along the way in terms of how to conduct myself and so forth. It was just a great summer job. I got a lot out of it, and whenever you can marry getting paid and golf, that's a good combination.
No question. How'd you get into the game originally? You said you were a player before.
Yeah, I grew up playing. I probably started when I was 7 or 8 years old. I just frankly hated summer camp. I just hated it. Like the nature walks, all the BS. Are we allowed to curse, or we keep it clean on this podcast?
Dude, you can say what the fuck you want.
Yeah, all the bullshit that came
Be
along with.
you, be you.
Yeah, that okay. Be careful what you ask for. But yeah, all
No,
the
I need it.
bullshit that came along with summer camp, like doing like pine cone drawings and going outside and just walking around in the woods. Like, forget about this stuff. Give me some other option. My parents were like, look, if you want to just go up to the driving range every day and learn how to play golf, you could do that. I did that for about 2 days and realized, hey, this is going to be a lot of fun. And literally lived at the golf course all summer as I was growing up. I'd go there, get there at 7 or 8 a.m. with my friends, hit balls, hit a million balls during the day, play late in the day once, the kids could get out on the golf course, and, wouldn't trade it for anything. It was an awesome way to spend the summers.
So aside from just getting out of summer camp, were you good right away? You clearly got the bug, but like, did you just flush a 7 iron? You said, this is fucking it.
I'll never forget my first time out on an actual golf course. I had to be maybe 8 by this time, and they have junior golf at 5 o'clock at night, and all the kids would get together, and so we go out. I hit my You play a scramble, so I hit my tee shot, and I think someone else hit a better one. So I get into the middle of the fairway. Literally had never been on a golf course before, and I just tee my ball up in the middle of the fairway. And like, excuse me, you just don't do that in golf. And so, as nice as it would be to do, I learned pretty quickly that I got to learn the rules of the game. But yeah, after a couple of years, I was getting to be pretty good, and decent junior golfer in Massachusetts, and loved the competition. And love the game. Only game you can call a penalty on yourself. So that's I think you build a lot of character playing golf.
Yeah, we're going to explore it a little bit further because you took it pretty far. You played it at a high collegiate level. But zooming back to the caddying days, what was that first day on the job? What did you wear? Were you intimidated at all? Just excited? Just didn't know your ass from your elbow?
I was pumped. Part of it too was I was pumped to see the new golf course, because the reason we were doing this is because you couldn't take carts out there, and I'd never seen the renovations of the course, and so I was pumped for a couple different reasons. I had my wife calls me midget legs. I got really short legs, so I had shorts on that probably went down to like my mid calves, and so definitely those were a staple of my summer attire, and then some oversized golf shirt, and so. Yeah, threw a couple bags, one on each shoulder. I was caddying for two guys that one of which I keep in touch to this day with. Their names were Rick Heineck, who was a really successful executive as a chief human resource officer, and Ed Baker, who actually lives out here in Scottsdale now, right down the street from me. And they were awesome guys. They were good golfers, but also, there was an opportunity, especially with Rick, to teach him a little more about the game in terms of, how your ball would react in a certain lie, or, course management type stuff. So I think we really enjoyed each other that summer. We were out there, and they were playing a lot. They'd let me hit a shot once in a while, which was really fun and nice of them. And we had a great time out there. It was a really fun little tradition we had.
You're still in touch with these guys. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. It's, I still go back to that same place in the Cape, and much like you, went from being a caddy to being a member there. And that was a really cool kind of, metamorphosis. And, I still see those guys. I still play in tournaments that they're in as well at times, member guests and all that stuff. And they were great to me when I was a kid. So always easy guys to try to emulate and be around.
So you were a really good player. You could add value to these guys right away, even as a 13, 14-year-old. Did you make any big blunders, screw up, completely screw the pooch out there at all? Like trying to tee the ball up in the fairway?
There's probably a couple of those. Like the obvious ones are like, oh, I think we'll find it. No need to hit a provisional. Then you walk 250 yards out there and realize that ball ain't coming back. And so there was a little of that. Probably the biggest one is I fell in love with actually playing while I was a caddy, because they were letting me hit shots, here and there, especially on the 18th hole or whatever. Probably got a little too focused on that at times and a little less focused on actually doing my job. But hey, that's the stuff you learn out there. It's like, it's, sometimes you just got to suck it up and do what you're supposed to do instead of do what you want to do. And so, but yeah, those were probably a couple of the greatest hits out there.
Who were some of the other people? You still get to see a lot of these folks. I mean, what was the culture like? What was the environment like? How do they treat caddies? How do they treat you?
Yeah, this was a little different, I would say, at New Seabury because there wasn't a caddy program historically, and it was generally the members' kids that were doing the caddying. It probably was a little less friction than you'd normally see, kind of getting introduced as a caddy into a club. I generally knew a lot of these folks, or my parents did. Everybody was wanting to play the new course, and so there was plenty of work to do. And ultimately, it was fun to maybe go from seeing people on the driving range to carrying their bag out there and getting to know them a little better and all of that.
Total cupcake caddy. We get it. Yeah. Super
100%.
coast job. No, I'm just kidding.
This is
I'm
like,
just kidding.
yeah,
I'm
the
just
Billy
kidding.
Madison of caddies, I think would be a good way to put it.
No, we run the gamut though. I mean, we've had people who didn't tell their parents they were caddying because you're not allowed to at the club. And then of course you're an Evans scholar, you go into this full like Lord of the Flies situation. Or when I was looping, you're dealing with some guys who are much older who are doing this year round. It'll take your head off. You really kind of pay your dues type of situation. So I think the dynamic is just always so interesting. And wherever you loop is wherever you loop. But you're still packing bags in the dead of summer. It's not
That's
easy
right.
work.
That humidity is no joke out there. The SWAS is coming on just full speed, and you're just hanging on for dear life out there.
What kind of scratch were you making? You enjoyed this whole experience? Were you making some decent money?
It wasn't great, especially by today's standards. It was essentially the way the club looked at it was pretty much like it's a replacement for a cart fee. And so this was closer to indentured servitude than it was to actually making any money. But it was, I probably made, I don't know, $50 for 18 holes, per bag, looping and carrying them around. But hey, for a 13-year-old, that was plenty of cake. So that was fine with me.
Yeah. How were you redeploying that capital? You're into your voracious appetite?
It's funny you say that. My number one answer was going to be food. Yeah, I was coming out of college. I was a stud, like 5'10", 275. And it was none of that 275 was muscle. Maybe my calves. Some people joke that about 95% of my muscle mass is in my calves, which is probably true. And so, yeah, it's I was investing heavily. The 99. I don't know if you've ever been to the 99 anywhere. It's like a Northeast kind of pub chain. Best buffalo wings on the planet. I ate a million of those, a million Diet Cokes, and whatever was left, I was spending in high school and college in similar ways. So yeah, that
By
was
the
the
way,
deal.
do not get it twisted. Josh Isner hits the shit out of the ball. So he absolutely cranks it. So whatever he was feeding himself, wherever the muscle has been distributed, the guy still hits it a long way. Hits it so hard. I mean, he's had back problems. Unfortunately, they've been completely alleviated at this point.
Wearing my back brace today, actually. We had, we played a couple weeks ago, and then we had the Whisper Rock member guest this last weekend. So a lot more golf than I would usually play in a 6 or 7 day span, and a little sore this week, but we're hanging in there.
How'd you shake out was it the hang?
It was the hang. It was the hang. I love the hat. It was the hang two, actually. So now there are two of them. This was the second one. I play with my boy James from Vegas every year. In this thing, we've won the flight the last 2 years. Unfortunately, this year we were third. We got off to a rocky start in the first match and played pretty good from there. But in these things, sometimes you lose one match by 2 or 3, and it's tough to dig out of that hole.
Razor sharp, as you and I had to endure. Unfortunately, we just missed this one down at El Dorado this last weekend by literally a 1 foot putt. It was 1 point, lip out. That's how the cookie crumbles, and it's very frustrating at times. But you still have a great time. But as competitors, as you and I, we love the competitive side of this thing. It's still gnawing at me. I'm not going to lie. I've definitely thought about it the last couple of nights.
I hear you. I hear you. There's not a lot of things that like guys our age can really compete in, and golf is one of those things. So when you have the opportunity and you don't take it, it's always a bummer.
And we won't name any names, Joaquin Vaughn, but we absolutely fleeced him and Shugich in our last match, kept them out of the horse race. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. But
Bummer.
we
Bummer.
won't document that for all of posterity.
I'm sorry to hear that about Los, one of my favorite people out here in the valley, and kills me to hear that he didn't seal the deal last week.
One of the absolute great guys. So, talking to great guys, what was what was it like? What were you learning? What were you picking up? Because these are really formative years. Did you have any idea what you wanted to go do? You're like, yeah, and I want to go run a technology company, right? Like, did you have with any semblance of that? Did you learn some of those things from people that you were caddying for?
Yeah, it's funny. I wanted to be a lawyer pretty much my whole life until I got to college and actually worked at a law firm and realized, it's not like on TV where you're in front of a judge all day. Like 99% of the job is like this not glorious like paperwork and reading depositions and all that. And so but I would say I learned a lot. Just I think if you're a kid, the best thing you could do is do a bunch of non glorious hard work. And like if you do that and it's not beneath you and you grind it out and you're carrying two 50 pound bags and someone's barking at you about something, not having the right distance and so forth, just builds character. You learn like, hey, this is what real life is like. It's not like I get to show up and do whatever I want every day. I'm like here to do a job, and it doesn't matter if the job is muling golf bags around or something else, scooping balls at the range, cleaning people's clubs, all that. It's like that's the kind of stuff where you just realize, like, hey, this is what it takes. Like this is, hopefully you get to do something more interesting over time, but it's that same work ethic and grit, and it also gives you a lot of appreciation and respect for the people who do that, day in and day out, for their whole careers. I have a lot of respect for folks who grind like that, and I think they deserve all of our appreciation. And so, having been through it myself, even for a little while, certainly something that I look back on fondly and with a lot of appreciation and lessons.
Yeah, you were always willing to put in the work. You not only played golf at Harvard, and would love to hear a little bit about how you matriculated there, but you also were a manager of the basketball team. So speaking of you putting the spit shine on the floor, making sure there's no sweat out there, showing up early, cleaning, all of that stuff. Um, what was that like balancing golf and also being a manager of a basketball team?
Yeah, yeah. Golf, I like to tell everyone around here in the office that, don't forget there's a Division 1 athlete walking around every day in here. Um, that's met with varying degrees of reaction. Some people just don't believe it, which I don't blame them. Some people go straight to golf isn't a sport, and other people are just so angry about that fact because they look at me, they're like, how the hell did this idiot play college sports? But yeah, it was golf was I was as marginal of an Ivy League golfer as you could possibly be. My freshman year, I cracked the top five a little bit, but overall, nothing to write home about in my college career. But basketball is a different story. I would say in terms of everything. I learned in college, to include in the classroom, being a manager on the basketball team under Coach Amaker there was by far the best way to prepare for real life. And so learned a ton about leadership, ton about battling through adversity, ton about just coaching people and being coached. And also just, having a lot of fun. Like, the coaches, yeah, I told you what my build was like in college. So the highlight of their day would be just rolling balls out on the court that I would have to go chase and bring back and wipe the floor down and all that. So they had a blast just working me all day, and it was quite an experience.
For the listeners, Josh was a little wider back then, and so he may have been tipping around 280 on that frame of him, not the tallest man, and so there was some real work that was going to take place there. And when I say like, I don't care if it's not like you're getting NIL money as a basketball manager like this day and age. That is a thankless, brutal job, and yet you get so much out of it, right? You get to be around real greatness and great leadership.
Yep, and Jeremy Lin was there when I was there, and so just watching how he approached his college career and how hard he worked, and frankly, a lot of people saying that he was, wouldn't be good, or was somebody that was a very marginal college player. To see, we knew that wasn't true. We saw how hard he worked every day, but then to see him make it in the NBA was pretty special. And so we I say that a lot at work. Like we hire a lot of former athletes here, and really between sports and the U.S. military, I don't think there's anything that can get you prepared for hard work and dealing with adversity and just grinding it out, quite like sports or military service. And so, we love people who have been through those experiences.
I was going to ask about that, actually, having known a little bit about the culture that you guys that have there, why it's so unique, how you guys self-select, but just hearing what you were like looping and how Josh Isner was coming together as a guy then, and then how that continued while you were at Harvard, it seems like you've always been around this grit, this hustle, this hard work, and especially at Axon, you tell people who may not know about the company and the culture, but what makes an Axonian an Axonian?
We're trying to emulate the 2000 to 2020 New England Patriots dynasty. That's the easiest way to put it. Like all of the same themes that built the New England Patriots, we try to deploy here. Things like blocking out the noise or having a next play mindset. You can see behind me there. Next play is something we talk about a lot, where it's like, hey, it doesn't matter what just happened. It's over. Like the only thing you can focus on is what's next. And, everything from how we think about personnel to like, hey, we have a salary cap. There are going to be these high price veterans we bring in. But for every one of those, we need to make sure we have a couple kind of rookies that we're developing along the way that, can really turn into, a valuable player on our team for the long term. The Patriots are famous for having these three words: smart, tough, dependable. Those are the three things that, Coach Belichick always expected everybody to be able to do or be very, like day in and day out. And here, at Axon, the three words we focus on is we like sharp people. You got to be really smart. Our founder, Rick, is one of the smartest people I've ever met, maybe the smartest. And to be able to hang with him, it just takes a certain level of intellect. So you got to be sharp. You got to be adaptable. We're a high growth company. We're growing very, very fast, and we're lucky enough to be in that position. But things are different every year, and if you don't have adaptable people that can change with the company, it's probably not going to work out over the long term. And then we want unstoppable people. This concept of being relentless and just like, hey, no matter what happened today, we're focused on tomorrow and doing the best we can. And that's a combination of putting in the work, having a high give a shit factor, and just day in and day out, doing the things that we feel like prepare people to be successful, when you tally up the score throughout the year. So for us, we're a very sports centric culture. That lends itself to, it's kind of like a pick your own adventure. You have to want to be that, because there are times where folks question like, hey, is having this, having 5,000 type A super competitive people the best like internal dynamics? And I think, yes, I want people competing with each other. I want people who are going to be pushed to be better and look around at their teammates and constantly wonder, hey, is this a team I'm good enough to be on? And I think that's what pushes people to be really good. But it's not for everyone. We say that a lot. Our company is not for everyone. And the people who self-select into it, tend to spend abnormally long periods of their career here. I've been here 16 years, the only company I've ever worked for, same with our founder. But you go down the list, we have, an alarmingly high rate of people who have been here 10 plus years. And that's, the sign of, I think a really healthy company when people come here, they're challenged, they try to get better every day, but they're in love with the mission and they want to be here for large stints in their career. So, sports and, growing up in sports, whether it's as a caddy or a manager of a basketball team or a player on a team, it's all, it's all that same stuff. It's like, hey, you could do your best and work hard and get everything out of something that you wanted to, and you could still lose. And that's the only way you learn that is in sports. And it's a question of how that makes you better. And do you take your ball and go home, or do you double down the next day and say, hey, we're going to get this right? And so, we love people from sports backgrounds.
No question. Can you elaborate on, you thought you weren't going to be an attorney, and you obviously navigated away, I'd say made a much better decision, went out in the real world and kind of figured out what attorneys actually do, who you were, how things fit. But you think about a kid who's out there looping this summer, or a former Evans scholar, or former We Met Foundation kid, and they're trying to kind of navigate that. Any advice that you can share with some of those guys to learn about themselves, how to keep getting better? What would you offer them?
Their parents might not like this advice, but it's from my personal experience. What I would recommend is like, look, you got to get good grades in school and college. You know, you can't fail out. But to me, the difference between the choice I made was if I dedicated all my time to schoolwork, I probably could have got a high threes or close to a 4.0 GPA. Instead, I was very comfortable with being a 3.3 guy, right in that range, but I was working 40 hours a week at the same time. And so to me, the combination of being a little less available in the classroom, I'd always try to take classes that required essay writing instead of tests at the end of the semester. So I didn't really, I could kind of watch the lectures online or whatever, do the work, but feel like, hey, I just got to sit down and write a paper at the end of this, not answer a bunch of questions about the material. To me, that was a way to do it because, I was, after 4 years of working full time throughout college, I was someone who was like, look, I get it. I know how to function in an office. I know how it is in corporate America. I understand what the expectations of me are. I understand how to talk to people more senior than me and not waste their time and, but get what I need to be able to go do my job better. And so when I got out of college, I felt like, hey, I'm ready for this. Like it wasn't, we see a lot of kids come, Ivy League grads that had 4.0 GPAs that don't know how to function at a company. And it's because they spent all their time in college in a classroom. And as our good friend Taylor Swift says, life is just a classroom. So the more you get out of the classroom and live life, the more you learn. And so to me, my advice to all the kids grinding it out is try to find a way in college to work in an office, even if it means trading off a little classroom time to be able to do that.
I could not agree with you more. And it's funny, another former caddy, dean of the business school, Jim Ellis, when I was at USC, he told us to get the hell out of the classroom, right? He said, there's so much that we can't teach you here. And I used to do 2 internships this summer. After my sophomore year, after my junior year, I already knew where I was going to work after graduation. And my mentality was, I'm going pro. LeBron and I are almost the exact same age. And same with Zuckerberg. And I'm like, those guys are my competition. I know when I'm graduating, they happen to be much better at their respective skills, but I'm going pro. And so it was, start an internship before the summer even started, quit that one, go work at another one until a month into the school year. But that's how I got to intern at Discovery Land Company in 2005 and learn about that. Push a mail cart at UTA and learn all about the kind of nucleus of the entertainment business at that time. But I think that Jim Ellis, and here's the dean of the business school, could not agree even anymore with that. And it is a problem these days because people don't know how to function, as you put it, and they're blindsided, right? And especially, I graduated in 2007. You graduated, 2008? Not a good job market, right? And it was a tough environment. And I think kids are graduating right now, and it's not a great environment. So just getting out there, getting reps, take an internship, do whatever you can, because there's only so much that you're going to get out of that textbook. And I think we know that. But to your point, I mean, my best buddy who also put you in touch with, Brian Warner, always teases me because I didn't graduate cum laude and he did. And I'm like, I didn't care because I knew, yeah, he was going to go in the Marine Corps and that's what he's good at. But I knew what I was going to go do. And I was turning pro in something else other than sports.
100%. I love it. And I think what a lot of people miss is like, hey man, like every day, whether it's caddying with and working for a couple, guys that day, or working in kind of a, like you said, in a mail room or whatever it is, those are always opportunities to build out your network and meet new people. And you never know, someone you meet there could be transformative in your career. For me, it was I was doing mock trial in high school, and then in college, our mock trial coach was from high school, was a lawyer in town, and that's the law office I worked in, for those years, and that's how I learned to just what to do in an office. And then folks, it's funny, folks that were attorneys in that office, they now work at Axon because I saw them doing their jobs and said, hey, these guys are good at what they do. And so you never know where those relationships bring you, but I think that is one thing. Is like, instead of focusing, like Coach Amaker used to say, like, just don't get through today, get something out of it. And I think that's very true in kind of entry level jobs, where it's like the thing you want to get out of it is like the relationships you build and the brand you build for yourself there, because you never know, those things can often lead to a pretty big breakthrough.
It's amazing you say those things because people look at your resume, right? 39 years old. Look what you've done. Look at the company you run. And then when you and I talk about greatness or the stepping stones, it's the marginal improvement every day, right? It's the compounding returns of that. And you're so big on that. That's how you've gotten to where you are. But it started way back when of compounding, 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 building, building, building. And, as they always say, the thing about overnight success is it takes a long time.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah, again, when I saw that something on LinkedIn or something at some point, it's like if you could just get 1% better every day and you add it up at the end of the year, you've outpaced your competition by 3, 4, 5x. I mean, and that's what it's all about. It's like, hey, how the world's changing a lot. Every day there's more competitors, there's more people who want your job, there's more people who want your customer base, whatever it is. And it's like if you're not getting better, those people are going to eat your lunch. And so making sure that it's a culture of like, hey, this is how we do things here. And the grind, it only gets harder as you have success. The expectations only grow, and you got to be comfortable with that. You got to feel like that's a challenge and an opportunity for you. And I'm really proud of a lot of people on our team. I think that is how they think about things.
Where'd the drive come from for you? I mean, you're talking about understanding networking at a very young age, right? You didn't just wake up as a junior in college and say, hey, you know what? I just started networking. I'm going to start sending out some LinkedIn connections, right? Like you were building things that were intangible. Where did that come from? What was motivating you?
I think as I've always had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, I'd say. Like I'm a fiercely, fiercely competitive person, but also like we talked about. I mean, being not a very athletic kid growing up, and carrying around a lot of weight and all that. Like people always just don't expect much out of you. And I've always had. You could see today. I mean, the amount of work I put into my personal appearance rounds to zero. And so, that's a little bit of something to overcome at the beginning of, beginning of your career and whatever. And like even my interview at TASER, they gave me a rejection. They said, hey, we're going to go in a different direction. And I kind of followed up with them and I said, hey, like, I believe in what you guys are doing. And if you give me a shot, I don't think you'll regret it. And I sent that note out to the founder of the company and got a call from HR the next day saying, hey, Rick wants to give you a shot. And got in here. People didn't think much of me early on. And it's like, hey, I'm just going to prove that I'm good, that I'm better than most people, like that I can, I can hold my own. And at the end of the day, it's just a choice you make. It's not, certain things have to materialize and sometimes you get lucky and whatever. But if you show up and you try to not only do your job, but do it at a level that is just better than most people who do that same job, people take notice eventually. And when you stack up those things over multiple years, all of a sudden your brand becomes like, hey, this is a reliable guy. This is someone who's never going to bitch about what the work schedule looks like or how many hours he has to put in. Someone who like wants to compete and show people twice his age that he can hang with them and that, he's capable of doing this. And, I was one of the things I'm most proud of in my career is I was a Section 16 officer at a public company in my 20s, and I was the president of the company by 37. And we're a $50 billion company now. I'm one of younger people that runs a company that size, and it's all because it's like, hey, I'm competitive. I wake up and give a shit every day, and I'll try my hardest and not overthink it. Like, hey, just make one good decision a day and stack those things. And over time, you're pretty happy with where things get to.
The one thing I'd add on to that is there's no person or task too small in your world. And so that's not unnoticed for someone who's gets to call you a friend, has got to know you over the last several years, whether we're at a golf course, anything like that. Josh treats everyone the same and exceptionally well. And I think that's when you talk about how leaders lead, that's an absolutely critical component, especially in a company teaming with former military athlete type A personalities, because there's a humanity to it that's so critical.
I appreciate you saying that. And that's the ultimate compliment for me, because that's ultimately, I really pay attention to that. Not only how I treat others, but how other people treat others. And my friends are always the people that I feel like show the ultimate respect to others, whether they're a janitor or whether they're a CEO. And the people I like least in life are the people who change how they behave based on who's sitting across from them. And, tell my kids at the end of the day, hey, like the number one thing, like if nothing else goes well, we're going to treat people extra nice that aren't as lucky as we are. And if you go through life with that mindset, I feel like your floor is still pretty high. And so that's really important to me.
Can you touch a little bit on mentors in your life? Caddying in particular, I think, always breeds this mentor-mentee relationship, this natural symbiosis. It was huge in my life. Grew up a lot of my life up my father around. But what was that like for you? Who were some of these people? And in my opinion, they tend to build like a ladder, and you don't know where they can go.
Yeah, it's funny. My dad passed away when I was young, and so I didn't necessarily have a lot of kind of male influence in my life close to me. My uncles are awesome, and nothing negative about anyone, but I still, in terms of like real career development, I generally learned from people that I just was kind of I saw online or saw in the news or whatever, and said, hey, like this is someone that I just naturally identify with. And those two people for me, I mentioned, one of them kind of peripherally, Bill Belichick, somebody that I've learned more from probably than anyone in my life, in terms of just how to run an organization, consistency of self, understanding how to win and how not to lose, all of those things. And then another person that lucky enough to call friend, but certainly have learned a ton from as well, as Dave Portnoy. And these are not people that there are other people that are like, oh wow, like why not Jack Welch or someone else? It's like, hey, like these two people are, I feel like, the best at what they do, and they are both extremely authentic. Like what you see is what you get with those guys, and that's how I try to run the company. I'm like, there are no secrets with me. This is how I act. This is how I behave. This is what I value. This is what I don't value. Here's what we're gonna do as a company. And look, you can either get on board with it or not. But we're gonna have a team here of people that are authentic, that give a shit, that see, the team is bigger than themselves, that are willing to make hard decisions, that are willing to talk about things that are real life, not sugarcoat certain things around performance or expectations or how we feel about things. And so those two, I've gotten lucky enough to spend more and more time with them and continue to learn from them. But those are two individuals that I very much look up to.
I think a lot of people, especially listeners of this show, would love to know Coach Belichick or love to know Dave Portnoy. How'd you get to know them? How'd you meet them?
You just take an interest in what they do, and one thing leads to the next. Like I'd imagine, caddies, there's, caddies of all different clubs, but, you might not meet the greatest coach of all time, but you'll meet people who coach sports as a caddy for sure. You'll meet people who run businesses. Dave was a founder of a company in Boston, and so he was kind of always around. But you find people like that are like, hey, this is someone. I think the biggest thing is being able to personally identify with them. If you have a mentor or someone you look up to that you're not a lot alike, I think that's a really you can certainly learn certain things from them, but those aren't necessarily the people you want to emulate, because then it just turns into like very superficial and it's not authentic to you. And, being a guy from Boston who grew up during those years of the Patriots dynasty, who saw this unapologetic kind of founder of a company, telling people how he actually felt and not worrying about if they liked him or not and whatever, like those are the types of people that I identified with. And so knowing that's very natural and organic to who I am, I always kind of sought out folks like that. But like I said, I mean, being a manager of a sports team at college, I learned a ton from Coach Amaker there. I learned a ton from our high school basketball coach, Ted Martellini. Like you just find people that they say, hey, I'm a little like this guy, and the things he says really resonate with me. And then you just try to pick up what you can, but also maintain your own edge and figure out, the things that make you a little different.
Yeah, no question. I think people will always ask me about the mentorship thing, especially some of my closest friends, because of the lack of father thing. I really sought it out. And caddying was it for me, especially in my collegiate years, and learning what a lawyer did or private equity or venture capital, any of that type of stuff. I just didn't know that stuff. But then life advice of, don't have a girlfriend in college and things like that are very, very important things for someone to sound off. But mentors are your friends first. And you have to vibe as a person without, and so people will want to like, oh, will you mentor me? It's like, well, let's just be friends first, right? Let's figure that step out first and go from there. And like, I mean, I've had two huge quintessential mentors in my life. One unfortunately passed away, May Siegel, but the second is Patrick Weitzel. And I met him 20 years ago caddying for him. And I had no idea that it was, going to be 10 years later, a guy I got to be friends with and play golf with. And now, I mean, I'm so blessed that any big decision in my life, I fortunately get to run by someone like him who's been there, done that, knows my values, knows what I'm all about, what I'm trying to do in my life. And there's nothing for me like kind of more special just because it's not family, right? It's very different. It's not just a friend. It's like, it's some weird amalgamation of everything because you don't choose your family and your friends are your friends in a different way, but to have someone who genuinely cares about you and your career and is invested in where you're going, there's nothing more powerful, more wind at your sail, I think, in a lot of respects, and it's absolutely been a game changer for me and my life and my career.
No question. I love what you said there. One of the things I unwound here at Axon a couple of years ago is like this forced mentorship program where you get assigned a mentor. I
Doesn't
think
fucking work.
bullshit. Yeah.
It's so dumb. It's so
like,
dumb.
it's like, oh, here's a guy you have nothing in common with that's going to like show you how to do your job better. It's like, no, that just doesn't work in real life. And so I do think mentorship is something that comes up organically. Like you said, generally your friends first, or there's some kind of common thread there. And then you just say, hey, I can learn. And then you start asking a bunch of questions. Like, it's not like, hey, like, will you mentor me? It's like, hey, what do you think about this situation? How would you handle it? And like, that's how you learn.
I started to write a book a long time ago for guidance for boys growing up fatherless. Because as Obama says, it leaves a hole in a child's heart. And you listen to Jay-Z's lyrics and what it was like for him and Drake, right? Of just unless you went through, you don't really know it. But one of the chapters is about being interesting and being interested, right? Like you can ask a lot of questions, but then Josh Isner's got to go out and show up. Right. He's got to go get things done. He's got to go get into Harvard. He's got to play on the team. He's got to be that manager. Be interesting. Be somebody that people want to take their most valuable asset, time, and spend it with you. And so, for people who are listening to that type of stuff, might be up against that. What we're talking about. Some word to the wise, like you keep building those bridges and you'll get over anything.
Yeah, I love it. And being interested isn't as simple as like, hey, I'm going to ask a bunch of questions. It's like, hey, you go off on your own and you learn on your own about these things. And then you ask more intelligent questions about them. Like, a lot of people are like, especially young people at times coming into, the office for the first time or whatever. They're like, oh, someone's just going to show me what to do every day. And I can just show up and be taught exactly what to do. It's like, no, like the people who are really good are spending the time outside of work learning and being resourceful. And then, the quality of their questions gets way better. And then, the person, that you're asking for help, like, oh, this person's like showing a legitimate interest in this. They're putting in time outside of work. Like those are the things that ultimately set you apart because, look, if you could just show up and accomplish what you wanted to do, there'd be a lot more successful people in this world. And it's just not that easy. You got to put in the work.
I think it's critical, and especially what we were talking about this day and age, it's hard to get jobs. It was hard when we were coming out of school. I'd say even harder when you were coming out. And I always say, look, you're either making something or selling something at any company, right? And if you're making something, I always want to know, what are you making outside of work, right? Like you're in college, engineers build, builders build. Like there was a co-founder of a company that I loved so much that literally built a replica of Kitty Hawk. It didn't even fit in his house. It was like streaming through out of his home. And I'm like, right, there's an engineer. And by the way, if you're a salesperson, sales is about relationships, right? It's about depth of understanding. So you come into it with a network, and maybe you were born into a network and you just have that, or you go and you cultivate it and you have people who believe in you and trust in you. And so, I mean, you and I kind of came up in a day and age where you actually had to go try to find someone's email address and like scrape and like, even email Rick or whomever. And, now it's like, oh, I applied to 200 jobs. It's, well, it's too easy to apply. How much have you personalized? How much do you follow up? By the way, how badly do you want this job? And so, those types of things, I think we're about to see that in a big way. And you're going to separate, the men from the boys, and people are going to get a big leg up, like I think you were able to do coming out at a very tough time.
No doubt. It's all about showing initiative.
Before I take up your entire day, back into just some of the caddying thing, you got to join the club where you grew up caddying. You've joined some others. What was that experience like? What was it like also when you started to play golf more at more country clubs, having a looper out there? What was the experience? And like, did you have it in the back of your mind of, hey, I've done that and I kind of know how to navigate that?
Yeah, it's funny. I think if you I think the best place in the world to play golf is Whisper Rock. You got the hat on there.
I don't disagree with you.
I'll never forget my interview there. Greg Trias is the owner of the club, somebody I have a ton of respect for. And as far as mentors go, you can learn a lot from that guy. And one of the things, I asked him in my interview, as I said, like, hey, it must be pretty cool to have pro golfers up there, and a lot of people, have such a great brand for the club and blah blah blah. And he goes, hey, they're just all people. Like it's all people. And regardless of what you do at the club, whether you're a pro golfer or a member or a caddy or somebody working the grill room, whatever, it's just all people up there. And there's a great reminder. It's like when I go up there, I want my brand at the club to be not the most popular member amongst members. I want to be the most popular member amongst the staff and caddies. Like, I think that's something that I value a lot, is like, hey, when I'm out with the caddies, I want them talking shit to me. I want to be joking around with them. I don't, and in the grill, I want to hear about what game people are betting on tonight. And it's just like, I think it's that's very rewarding. And when you're out there with a caddy, having been one and so forth, it's like, I'll still rake my own bunkers. Like, I don't need the caddy running around raking after me or like whatever. It's just someone out there you can hang out with for 3 or 4 hours and have a bunch of laughs with, and that's what I enjoy. I hate folks who take caddies out and are like acting like they're playing in the US Open and barking at the caddy for a missed read and all that stuff. It's like, dude, get over yourself. Like, it's supposed to be fun. These people are working hard out here, working way harder day to day than a lot of us. And like, they deserve your respect and companionship, not a bunch of bullshit. So, that's kind of how I think about it.
Fantastic perspective. And as you said from the outset, any day playing golf outside is a stolen day, and we're very lucky to have it. I'm going to let you run, but speaking of the Rock, and I do unequivocally, it's the greatest place ever. Best culture, best run. You see a benevolent dictatorship and how well someone can execute that vision. It's an absolute gem in the golf world. But are there any stories of loopers that you've come across? Anybody else that we should try to get in touch with, highlight? We get to say, hey, Josh sent you.
The guy I admire a lot, and I'll qualify this, I don't know him particularly well, but I've always admired his story, is Kevin Streelman. He was a looper at the Rock, and turned into a tour winner, someone who had an exceptional career, played golf at Duke. Someone who put in the time, very big family guy. He's I think a great role model for a lot of young players, and somebody who put in the time caddying too. And it's really cool to see guys like that were one day looping at the Rock, and the next day they're coming back with either championships on the PGA Tour or great finishes and so forth. And so he's somebody that I always had a lot of respect for sure.
Jizzy man, I appreciate your time, and more than anything, your friendship, your candor. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep inspiring. You inspire me, even though you're younger than me, you jackass. But
well, the good news is I don't look younger than you, so I'd rather be in your position, to be honest.
I mean, you're Jewish. I'm Asian. You can't compete.
That's right. I 100%. It's I feel about 65 these days, so probably not the dynamic we're looking for here for a very healthy life, but we're working on it. So we'll see.
Quality of life is high. You're the man. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, thanks, Kai, and congrats on all your success as well. And we'll tee it soon. Really enjoy the time we get to spend together.